Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. It's me, Doug Robbins, your wedding officiant, or Doug the officiant, or I go by many different names, actually. So you pretty much call me anything, I'll answer to it. Welcome to Engagement, where we talk about pretty much whatever tickles my fancy. And it's an opportunity for us to share ideas. It's a safe space for curated conversations. And I'd like to welcome you again to Engagement. You know, that short intro catches me off guard every time I'm about to grab a sip of my drink and my cocktail of choice. Tonight, it's a dirty martini, and it's just too short. I'm going to have to get that a little bit longer so I have a little more time for my sip. So welcome. I hope you have a beverage as well, because we're talking everything summer right now. And we are season 2 episode, I believe we're 6 or 5, or it's getting up there. We've talked about how you can get a brew wagon in your backyard for your party. We've talked to Fergie Jenkins about baseball. We've talked about summer fun. We've done some sipping with Susan, and if you've watched any of the sipping with Susans or sipping into summer, you're going to want to tune in next week as well. It's going to be interesting. And the other big thing about summer is people read a lot of books. So I thought to myself, hey, self, let's find someone who knows a lot about books, more than I do. And who would you go to? Of course, we'd go to this young lady here, Tanya Sharp, who is our local librarian at the Chatham Municipal Library Systems. And so I thought, well, that's Tanya. And so welcome, Tanya.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. So a little confession about summertime reading. I read a lot of required reading. So things like, journals on economics and all that really dry stuff, right? I don't read a lot for pleasure, unfortunately. And I'm also a very busy imagination, so I quite often will guess what's going to happen next, and that becomes not fun for me when I'm reading a book. So I think the last time I declared I was going to read a book this summer was probably about, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, maybe even more. And the book of choice, don't judge me, was the Yeah Sisterhood.
That's a good one, though.
It was good. It kept me guessing. I found myself in the backyard with a cocktail, probably, because, it's hot here, reading along and occasionally doing the voices as I would expect them to sound anyhow.
Exactly.
So that was it. This year I said, you know what? I'm going to read a book this year. I'm going to find a summertime book. I'm going to read it. And the joke was that because the Olympics were on, I actually, and my wife took over the TV during the Olympics, that I would actually, watch or read an entire book. So I'm curious to hear what you're reading right now.
Well, now you're going to have to tell me when to stop, because when it comes to books, I'll just keep on keeping. So I sent you my list, and I'm a huge historical fiction fan. I enjoy books with a paranormal twist, time travel. I used to read a fair amount of dystopian fiction, but these days it's just not nearly as appealing as it once was. So,
qu'est-ce que c'est? Dystopian, what was it called?
Dystopian novels. So it's kind of like what we're going through right now with COVID-19, right? The world's up on end, and crisis and all good stuff like that. So normally I'd love that, but lately
we're living that right now. So
yeah, well, exactly. Why do I need to read it, right? I'm supposed to be escaping reality, not delving further into it. So as I said, historical fiction is a really big topic for me. I learn a lot through historical fiction. I like to explore different eras and stuff. But right now, historical fiction written or during or around World War II is really popular. So the first book we're going to talk about is The Last Bookshop in London. And it says right on it, it's a novel of World War II. particularly liked this one because it was focused on the home front in England. London during the Blitz had a major female character. The twist for me was that it talked, she was a warden, so she did a lot of work with helping to make sure the streets were safe, helping people get to shelters. And it just gave you a bit more of the home front experience rather than the trenches or that sort of thing. I really liked it because Grace, who's the main character, she develops a love of reading, which she hadn't really had before because she starts working in a used bookshop. Mm-hmm. And it really talked about the value of reading during some difficult times. So there's some parallels with today and gotcha. How you can use reading to escape or to learn. So for me, again, I learned a little bit more about what it was like to be living on, in London during World War II, during the Blitz and the bombs and things like that. So it was a good book for that. It's a pretty recent book too.
Nice. And then this one here apparently is on your read list as well.
Yes, I read that one at first. I've read a few of this author, but I hadn't really realized. This one, again, it's historical fiction, set in a different time. I'm just checking my notes because I'm not great with dates, even though I'm a history major. So it's set in 1906 in San Francisco, California, just before and during a really big earthquake. And the main character, Sophie, has agreed to be a mail order bride, and she is going out to California to marry a man sight unseen, like literally nothing. Wow. And so what's she escaping from? There's a real mystery element to this too. There's no romance. Trust me on this. But it talked about how people survived and, the camps that they had to set up because people were completely displaced. And yeah, it was informative and a really good mystery and quite a few twists in there. It kept me going.
Twist are where it's at. I mean, you want to you want to turn the page, see what's happening. You don't want to expect what's happening. So
no, exactly. Sometimes it's nice. That's why sometimes I like to reread favorite books because you just want to be comfortable in your story. But this one, it had some really good twists.
Now, what about this one here?
Oh, Pam Jenoff is an incredibly, so a lot of the books I'm going to talk about are not necessarily, Globe and Mail bestsellers or, right. New York Times bestsellers. They're what I like to call hidden gems. Mm-hmm. Pam Jenoff is a fairly well-known author now. She writes strictly historical fiction, World War II. This particular novel is a little bit different in that it's set in Poland. It depicts the life, and these are based on true stories, of a couple of Jewish families who ended up living in the sewers to escape, being sent to concentration camps by the Germans. For that reason, I picked that one. She's a very popular author. Very easy to read books. There's, they're a good storyline. They get right into the story. It's fairly fast paced. But again, who can imagine trying to escape, Nazi German concentration camps by living in sewers for up to a year? It was a bit gritty at times, but still, it was interesting, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And this one here, you also said is a good page turner.
Yes. So it's another World War II. Mm-hmm. There's a theme. Yeah. Jennifer Robson, she's a Canadian author, so I liked her, and she's based out of Toronto, so it's practically a local author. I think this is her 6th book. What was different about this particular book was it was set in Italy. So I hadn't read about the Italian World War II experience. And it's a young woman, the main character. She ends up hiding in the countryside, marrying a fellow and trying to hide the fact that she's Jewish. And she gave up a lot. She left her mom and her dad. She went to the countryside. She gave up her medical. She was hoping to become a doctor, so she gave that up in order to survive. And a lot of these books that I'm recommending tonight are, when I say they're simple to read, I don't mean that they're they're a nice, easy read, but the themes and the topics, a young adult could read them as well. They're pretty, they're not hard to read. I tell you, it's a theme right now for me, Doug. I like it to be short, fast paced, get on with the story. So
get on with it. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, oy vey. All right.
Yeah.
So this one here.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Kristen Hanna. Now, Kristen Hanna is a New York Times bestselling author. A lot of people will know this author. She's written a lot. Her backlog is really quite extensive. This one is not quite World War II. It's 1934, set in Texas during the drought in the Great Plains. It took me a minute or two, honestly, to get into this book. This is not a short book, so something different. But it was set in a time period I wasn't familiar with. I mean, I knew about the Depression. I'm a history major, but it gave you a lot more personal sides to it. And Kristen even goes into some of the details, like how the government tried to work with farmers to get them to change up some of their farming practices in order to preserve the soil. Oh, I thought I heard a beep. Sorry. In order to, I was like, it could be my phone. I don't know. Anyway, never mind. Sorry. How to get the farmers to change up their practices. But the human interest story is they sent people, people went out west, and I didn't know about the term Okies, and people who immigrated from the plains out west were called Okies, and they were in like tent camps. Their conditions that they lived in were abysmal. They weren't treated nicely. They were considered second class, scroungy kind of citizens. It was really eye-opening, and again, parallels to today, right? So yeah, that one was really good. And like I said, parallels to today's sort of disenfranchised and vulnerable people, and how people were treated by fellow citizens.
True. Right.
But good read.
Yep. And
I like this one.
Yeah.
I like all my books. What am I
Of course you do. They're your babies.
Yes. So Library of Legends. This is another Canadian author. It's a historic fiction, and it's based, I think it was about 1937, just before the Sino-Japanese War in China. And it's based on true facts of the exodus from universities of students. So China was sending their young, bright minds out into the countryside to save them. But as well, they sent their books. So they were trying from their library. So their most precious items, their books, their culture, their knowledge out into the countryside. And remember at the beginning, I said I do like things with a little paranormal twist. This one has a real sort of magical, mystical twist to it. And it's beautifully written. I believe the author writes as well for young adults. And this book is just as readable for adults as it is for young adults, so a teenager. Again, it was a time period in history that I didn't study any Japanese or Chinese or really Asian history. So it really gave me a lot more information about that time period and how what they did during that time. It was very vivid.
It's we know that it's important to get kids to read at a young age, whether they're reading whatever it is they enjoy, if it's comic books or if it's the newspaper, or I grew up back in the day. Now you're too young to remember this, but the Mad magazines.
Oh yeah, not too young for that. Yeah, read them devotedly as a young person. Yeah. Yeah,
I would buy them and go right to the back page where you could do the fold and you got a different image.
Yeah. Oh, I remember those.
That was me. Yeah. So whether they're reading a book, fat, thin, whatever it is, it's important, because really reading it's a muscle, and the more you use it, the better you get at it. And I always used to just sort of like, it was always an awe, and in class, people would read, and people would just dance through the words, and they'd get to poor little Dougie, and I'd be like,
Well, reading out loud is a skill. You really do have to practice that, right?
You do.
It's so much easier to read in your head, right? Because
Yep.
even if you don't, you can fudge and slur your way along, but reading out loud is an art form. And some people, well, think about audiobooks. I don't know if you like that, but when I was going back and forth to London a number of years back for school, I listened to a great number of audiobooks, and it can be the best story in the world, but if it's a voice you don't enjoy, or it just grates on you, it's just no longer an enjoyable book. True. So it's an art form, I think.
This one here, I think, is probably getting into a little more of the nonfiction at this point.
Yes. Well, see, and I picked the checklist book when this one came out on a reading list. When we select our books at the library, we use publishers' catalogs. We use things like Library Journal, Publishers Weekly. We keep an eye on, popular culture, and that's how we select our books. So when this one came out, it was like, oh, pardon the pun, but check, we need this one. Checklists for me are how I get things done. If it is not on a list, if it's not written down, unfortunately, it means probably that item or is not going to get picked up at the grocery store, or it's just not going to get accomplished. And that, it's the same for work and at home. So the checklist book is really cool. And then it kind of goes behind some of the history of it. Why wouldn't I like that? So it all goes back to Roman times, Doug, that they used to do a V for veritas. So it's a true. And so the idea is that V, the longer tail became the check. So the check meant that it's true, that it's done. And so that's it. And the author, Alex, she talks about kind of the psychological benefits of making a list and, checking things off. I'm sure most people would agree. There's a great sense of accomplishment when we check that list. So, and then she provides, it's a very tiny book, but she provides a lot of, she has her own website, and she provides access to, you can, print off her list to help you create checklists. So it's classified as a self-help book, but I don't know.
We all need a little help sometimes.
Well, but it was I just found it really enjoyable. Just really.
I'm a huge list maker. I'll, make my list, and I think everyone should. They say that one of the best work practices is if you, before you close up your day at work, if you make your morning list, right? I'm the person that will have a list, and then I'll do something that's not on the list, probably out of procrastination, and then I'll add it to the list so I can check it off.
Oh, I'm big on that. Yeah. Well, and in our job, sometimes it can feel like, and I'm sure this is for everyone, you get to the end of the week and think, well, what on earth did I do all week? And if you don't kind of keep a list, you can lose track. Right? It's like, oh, well, especially these days, I find, mission accomplished, done something, and then it's completely out of my mind. And worse yet, now I'm like, okay, did I do that or didn't I? Right? So having the list, checking it off, it helps. I can go back a page and go, yes,
I did that. Yes, I have the V beside it.
Yeah, exactly. That beautiful V. Yeah.
This one here intrigues me. Your next two actually really intrigue me. Well, actually, the checklist now, I may have to add that to my list of things to read.
It's all available. Every book I talk about.
At the library.
At the library.
You can help out. So the library card, when you get a library card, you can you get a book for library card.
Beautiful library card.
You can get a book for how long?
If it's super popular, like say a Kristen Hanna with lots of waiting lists, 2 weeks. But generally it's 3 weeks. But then for our avid readers, we have a selection of books called express reads that go out for 1 week. So if you're an avid reader like myself, you can walk into the library and we'll have a selection, any of my 11 locations, we will have a selection of popular, timely, current books that you can literally just pick one off that shelf, take it out for a week, and then bring it back. So it means you don't have to wait for something to come on hold. Now, for me, there's always so much I want to read that I am quite happy to have things trickle in on a hold. A couple of books a week is more than enough. 1 book a week is probably the best for me.
So
yeah.
do we still have late fees on books?
I do. Yeah. I still have late fees on all my adult materials, but for children's, we are fine free. And that is a really good thing for families, for our busy working families that, they know how important it is for their kids to keep up their reading over the holidays, over the summer, over Christmas. And so we have been able to eliminate the late fees for those items, which is good. I think it makes life a lot easier for our families.
When I was a kid, our librarian in Dresden Area Central School, shout out to Dresden, was Mrs. Roberts, and she'd pull out the little card, the front of the little, that was in the little pouch of your book, and she'd stamp it for your return date and put it back in, or however they did it. Maybe they kept the card and put a note in. But yeah, it was always kind of like, well, I better get reading this because I got to get it back. So
I know. That's how I started. I started out at the Tilbury Library, right when it was Kent County. And yeah, we would stamp the due date on a little piece of paper attached to the pocket, and we'd pull the little card out and put your, be your numbers 141 or whatever. And that's how we'd know who has the item out. Yeah. I kind of miss those days.
Yeah. There's something with the smell of those little cards with the Dewey Decimal drawers, right? Romantic. Yeah. Speaking of romance, I'm not sure if there's any romance in this book, but
there is actually. You know what? It is an incredibly romantic book. Now, this one came to me, was recommended by a friend of mine, Fanny, in town. She's a huge reader.
I know Fanny.
Yeah, she recommends a lot of books.
We love Fanny.
Yeah, well, who doesn't? I mean, come on. So she recommended it, and it is it's the story of Amy Krauss Rosenthal, written by her husband. It talks a little bit about Jason. His life before he met Amy, his life when he met Amy, then his life when he married Amy. They had 3 children together. They were just about to be empty nesters, and she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Oh. It's very clear she's not going to make it. She does not make it. She dies. And then there's quite a bit after, in the book about how he copes after the fact. But the whole book came about because 10 days before Amy passed away, and I might get a little emotional.
I might cry along with you.
No, okay, so let's see. She wrote a op-ed piece for the New York Times that said, you may want to marry my husband, to encourage him to go on after she passed. It went viral. It was insane. And he wrote the book afterwards. So it's an everything book. You might think, oh no, I can't read it. It's going to be too sad. It's not. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. And I just want to add, because again, librarian, bookworm that I am, Amy Krauss Rosenthal also wrote a lot of children's books, and she did beautiful, beautiful books. So it's nice to see that she still lives on in those books, and in this basically it's a love letter to his wife and their relationship. It's a beautiful book. You might get misty-eyed, but it is so worth the read. It's just well done.
Is it something that a wedding celebrant should read?
Yeah, because it's filled with love. It's a fabulous example of, it's not like it was a sugar-coated marriage or anything. It was a real marriage, but it was love. To the end.
LOVE. Yeah.
Yes. Capital.
I'm going to add that to my list.
Yes, please do.
This one here, because I think this guy is hilarious, and I follow this guy. I follow this guy on the TikTok all the time. I do.
He's hilarious.
Who
can't love that face? Come on. So a lot of people will know Leslie Jordan because he's an Emmy award-winning actor, and he won the award for being Beverly Leslie on Will and Grace. Beverly Leslie.
Yeah.
And I've read his book, and now I downloaded it, and I'm listening to it through our Libby app, because he narrates his own book. And remember, I said earlier, it has to be the right voice. He's perfect. He's perfect. And, you get that Southern charm that he has, and that little bit of sassy, because he is sassy. Yeah, he's just lovely. Anyway, so it's not a memoir. It's literally a bunch of anecdotes, but it talks about how he became famous on Instagram and probably TikTok, like you were saying, right? So yeah, he was doing it. He was in I'm gonna forget the name of the show, but it was a show that was only in for about a year, and then it didn't fly. But the marketing people with the show wanted him to get on Instagram, to help drum up some PR for the show. And so he got on. He didn't know what he was doing. He just fumbled around. And next thing he knew, he had 22,000 followers, and he thought he was the bee's knees. Like, holy moly, I've done it, right? And they were like, well, no. But then his good friend Megan from Will and Grace shared one of his things, and then it took off because he's funny. I mean, the man is funny. And so that's how it started, and that's how he starts his book. But then he just he reflects a little bit about his life growing up in, I think it was Chattanooga, Tennessee, and what it was like to be a gay young man, and some of the escapades he got into, and then how he turned his life around, and then how he got into acting later. And it's really good. I really liked it.
Being a lover of Southern things, and the word y'all is really one of my favorite words in the Southern dictionary. Y'all is it's
so inclusive.
It is. Well, no, actually, y'all, it means y'all, but Ewan is y'all plus 3, and so I've studied, y'allism, and a group of y'all is all y'all, because that's more than just a few. So I'm a big fan, but
okay,
that's
there's more semantics to it than perhaps I know.
There's a lot. I've learned a lot in my time down south. So I mentioned at the top of the show that I was reading, so I'll share a little bit about what I because I don't do a lot of luxury reading, really, as you'd call it, but I saw this by chance, and quite often I don't believe things happen for chance. Everything happens for a reason, but I saw this happen to interview on TV, and I had to get this book because I like to cook. I don't know if you know that about me, and I love the romanticism of food and the description of food. So this book, Finding Freedom by Erin French, I found to be such a great story, and a bit of a job dropper because of what she went through to get to where she is. And I won't spoil it for you, because I didn't expect this. I saw this, this pretty sandy blonde lady who has a phenomenal restaurant that you can only get into by sending a postcard and getting accepted to come to one of her dinners.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's like the epitome of upper crust. See what I did there? And it was a great book. And at points, and it takes a lot for my heart to get beating, but there's a couple points where I would stop at night because I can't know what's going to happen next. And I put it down. As you get older, you have to be careful because you can't sleep at night, right? If you get too excited. So
can't put the book down.
I know. But Dougie's got to work the next day, so he's got to get some sleep. So then I used Google first, and I put in "if I like Finding Freedom," which is an unfortunate name because, of course, Harry and Meghan have a book by the same name. So I put in if I like Finding Freedom by Erin French, what else do I like?
Right.
And it gave me a bunch of books, which I've got the list saved. But I also put it out on Facebook and Instagram, and one of your staff, Sarah Hart, who used to work at my bookstore back in the day.
She did.
Bates Bookstore, Cafe and Roastery.
Yeah.
She sent me a list. Apparently you can do this through the library. If you like these books, you put it in the library search engine, and the librarians in the back room go, you'll like these. So that's pretty cool.
We did a lot of that actually while we were closed and only able to provide curbside. We did something called subscription bags, and that's exactly. People would say, okay, I like to read this, I like to watch these shows, and this is what I'm interested in. And then in the background, the librarians went around and went, oh, well then, Doug's going to want to read this one, this one, this one. And it was really popular, very popular. My parents actually took it, and you'd think they wouldn't have to. They have their own librarian.
Yeah,
right?
they can just call their daughter, right?
I know. Yeah. But my staff, they selected for both my mom and my dad, and it was like Christmas time. I would bring the bags home, and they would be so excited. It was nice.
Yeah. So I ended up picking up this book to read.
Okay, let's see. Oh yes,
Kitchen Confidential. I never really cared for Anthony Bourdain. I've seen him on shows before, but I like the prologue talked about, that he's got like loose lips and he's not afraid to swear, and he likes food and he's daring in the kitchen and all the things that I love to be. So I picked that up and I'm just getting my toes into it right now. So a bit of a slow start, but I'm expecting great things. Everyone says it's a good read, so we'll find out. But yeah, I'm always interested to find out what else is good. And based on your list of things that you've provided, probably the 3 in the nonfiction area, which I don't read a lot of nonfiction, but will likely be added to my list for sort of my wintertime reading. But I'm really excited about this one here because this is local. And this lady has been on my show when I did a series about phenomenal females. And she's from Chatham, Kent, and she wrote a book. And it's called A Tale of a Broken Brain. And it's Katie Villaranda. And like I said, she's local. And her story, she speaks about it very briefly on our Phenomenal Female series, and you can find it on YouTube if you want to watch it again. And she talks about some of the struggles she went through, and you never really know a person until you hear what they've had to endure, and it's real easy to sort of look at someone and judge them very quickly and make a rapid knee-jerk reaction decision on someone. But when you read what actually or hear what actually happened to them, you go, wow, maybe I should have been a little nicer, or maybe I should have been a little kinder. And I'm expecting that in her book because I know that I know a bit about Katie's story, and I know her family and her husband quite well. So it'd be very interesting to read that as well. So it's a local author, and I'm sure that you can find this at our local library, or you can order it online. But
we should have it. I'd be surprised if my selection librarians haven't picked it and got it already going for us. But it's speaking about that, it's other people's backstories are always interesting. And Katie's is particularly interesting. Agreed. But I've always found that just hearing what other people are up to, what they've done in their lives, where they've traveled, even what they read is interesting, right? Because it'll tell you a lot more about that person.
Any glimpse into someone's life, what they read, what they eat, what they drink, their playlist. I mean, it tells you a lot about people, right? So I'm a huge I love books. I owned a bookstore for a while. I always joke that my book of choice is a cookbook, but still, nonetheless, I do read occasionally.
Books, though, don't talk them down.
I call that kitchen porn.
And they're interesting. You read the foreword and you find out where this person came from and how they developed this passion for cooking and what influenced them and why they've gone with a particular type of cooking or no.
It's always good. So
exactly.
But I encourage everyone to, of course, check out the team at your local library, wherever you're at. I mean, we hope that people watch us all over the globe. But if you're in Chatham or Chattanooga, go talk to your librarian because, they have a lot of knowledge, a lot of resources. And I can't imagine if I was a passionate reader, having a job where I get to read all day. That would be.
If only that was my job. Actually, that's one of the hardest parts about the job is I get to see all the new stuff coming in and it
goes out.
I was like,
Yeah.
I don't have time.
Well, that's true. But
Yeah.
your library has a wealth of knowledge, and people don't realize too, when you go to your library, it's not just book rentals.
Oh,
They
gosh,
have
no.
movie rentals. They have audiobooks.
Mhm.
Our local library has like activities for kids that you can
Yep.
rent in games, and you never know what you're going to find at your local. You never know what or who you might find at your local
Well,
library.
there's all sorts of people cropping up at the library. But
That's
yeah, no,
right.
we have a library of things is very popular. We have ukulele kits that we
Mhm.
can loan out. We have play packs, story kits. So all of those sorts of things. We're just finished up the springtime seed library, and we're going to have a fall seed library specifically. I think it's milkweed seeds that they'll be
Mhm.
lending
Yeah.
to help with the monarch butterfly population. Yeah, always keep an eye. We have book club kits. So if you
Mhm.
have a group of people and you just call us, just message us on Facebook
Yep.
and just ask your question and we'll get you an
Mhm.
answer.
Yep. And a lot of local libraries support. They give incredible support to the small free little libraries that people have in neighborhoods for those that can't get to the library. So
You
I
have a good
always,
connection.
yeah, I do. But it's just great to see, a little library at someone's curb or park or what have you, where you
Mhm.
can go in and get a book and maybe keep the book if you really like it and bring another book back, and it becomes a book exchange
Yep.
box, right? So I know that we have one, and there's several throughout our town, and I know that our good friend Fanny has one on her
Yes,
front
she
lawn.
does.
Yep.
She has a
So
pretty high end little book library there.
the
She's got some
the
pretty good
girl's got it
stuff.
going on. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
The girl, she
exactly.
always has, and she always will.
I think
So
her ears are going to be burning now.
yeah, yeah. And her and I both share a really good friend in a friend named Dana, who also had one as well. And you sort of
Yeah,
keep that alive and you keep it going. And
that's
your
right.
local library might very well be behind that. So
Mhm.
go out to
They're
your
a pretty
library.
devious bunch.
Yeah, very cunning. Yeah, they
Well,
are.
hey, the goal is to promote a love of reading, and so
Mhm.
if you can't make it to the library, and or you're just sort of dipping your toes, getting back into the reading game, and you see a book you like at the your little free library, and then you think, well, I want more by this author, or I want more on this topic. Come back and see us at the library, and we'll hook you up with all sorts of good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? It's always a pleasure talking to you and talking to the library staff. I thank you for your time tonight,
Thank you.
and I hope to see y'all soon.